we didn't have a product in 2021. We had an idea, we had a vision of what was possible of being built, and we were able to captivate and capture the hearts and minds of hundreds of thousands of people because of that vision and because of how we communicated it. We've never taken outside venture capital. We effectively bootstrapped the entire funding of the game, and that started with token sales. From there, it was really just being able to release new asset classes. The grand total of revenue off of all of that to date is about $250 million. You really need to have diehard conviction and perseverance in what it is that you're building. We believe in this vision more than anything else. And this is what we want to dedicate our lives to, and this is what we want to build. And I think that's the reason we're still around today.
Hello PlayToEarn family, we are here at Token and we're loving it. And in our presence, we have one of the OG builders in the Web3 gaming space. They were one of the first and are still a AAA flagship on the Solana ecosystem. Talking about none other than Michael Wagner, the founder and CEO of Star Atlas. Michael, how are you doing today?
Jawad, I'm doing great. It's great to be here with you.
Good to hear. So at PlayToEarn, what we try to learn is more about the builders' journeys and how we can educate the next generation of Web3 gaming builders. So could you share a little bit about your background, how you came to find Star Atlas and the building journey overall?
Yeah, well, I've been around in the crypto space for a long time now. I'll just kind of take it all the way back. I was previously in the traditional finance industry, hold a CFA charter, so my whole career centered on financial management and then institutional and high net worth wealth management for people. It was really through that and a longtime friend of mine on a bike ride where I got connected to crypto via the idea of mining crypto with GPUs. If I go even farther back, in my high school days, grew up in a computer gaming group. This was our friends. We called ourselves the Lanarchists. This was in the local area networking days. And so I grew up building all my own PCs and spending weekends just at LAN parties, eating pizza, drinking Mountain Dew, and building all my own computers. Gave me the aptitude to be able to set up these crypto mining rigs. So that was back in 2013. Very terrible timing. It was right before the collapse of Mt. Gox that I got in, about October of 2013. And so I had to suffer through effectively a 2-year bear market. And back in those days too, it was, I think now there's a certain level of certainty that at least Bitcoin's going to make it and that crypto is really going to make it. Extremely uncertain back then as to whether or not there was a future for what we were, the space we were operating in. So worked through those 2 years though. I was extremely captivated by the potential of the technology and the financial integration into blockchain. And in 2015, I was trying to get the RIA, Registered Investment Advisory firm that I worked at, to bring Bitcoin into client portfolios. And the stigma was so bad, the managing director was like, don't even talk about Bitcoin in the office. Don't bring it up at all, right? And so I knew that this is where I wanted to focus my life. So I gave up the career. I moved full-time into crypto. And I'm actually a 2-time founder in the space. So I launched a company called TOKES in 2016. And this was a project that worked at the intersection of crypto and legal cannabis. And so we were using blockchain as a way of providing payment solutions, as well as a way of effectively banking legal cannabis entities in the United States.
Very interesting. I wouldn't have guessed it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was really, it was less about the industry and it was more about the application of the technology and the use case being present. Now, most people are probably familiar with this, but if you're not, there is disparity between federal and state legalization in the United States. And so, the federal government says cannabis is legal, but depending on the state you reside in, you can purchase it either medically or recreationally. However, because all of banks are federal institutions and credit card companies are federal institutions, they will not provide these services to that industry. And so we saw crypto as a great solution for this, effectively self-custody of assets. And what we built out was payment processing technology, a merchant gateway and point of sale system that those businesses could use and accept crypto as a form of payment, and then store that on chain and be able to cash that out when necessary.
This is very interesting. So you were building in the Web3 space even before gaming.
Way before gaming and before it was called Web3, just crypto back then. But So that was the first entrepreneurial endeavor I undertook, and kind of leading into Star Atlas, part of the growth of that company was that I think I facilitated the first ever token merger. There's another project called the Cannabis and Hemp Exchange, and they had a token that they had launched. We got connected together. We ultimately merged the two companies, and we dissolved the checks token and converted all of those holders into TOKES token holders. And a key part of that was kind of a talent acquisition. So Danny Floyd and Jacob Floyd happened to be working on the checks team. Now, those of you that know Star Atlas know that those are the two co-founders that I have at Star Atlas today. And so we've been building together for about 8 years. We have a great dynamic between us, and we all have our own lane that we like to stay in and our own specialization. So I think that's a large reason why we've encountered the success that we have at Star Atlas, is just this co-founder team that can tackle both game direction, game design, art direction, everything on the full tech stack side, including our blockchain game logic. And then, me out here taking interviews, but also focused very heavily on how the finances and financial incentive mechanisms work, and then a deep understanding of economic systems throughout our game. And so that essentially got us to the ideation phase of Star Atlas in 2020, and the rest I'm sure you'll get into as we chat
So,
today.
one of the major things that Web3 gaming founders struggle with is community. And Star Atlas is, they have an incredible community from the start. Like, I've seen you guys grow, and you have massive amount of people within the Web3 gaming space. So the question is, how was community building way back when you guys were starting out, and how is it different now? And what can the next generation of Web3 gaming founders do better in terms of community building?
Yeah, I mean, I want to give a major shout out and compliment to our community team. Santi Acomo is now our director of community. He came on as a very junior guy and a very young guy in April of 2021. So it was one of the first roles we hired for was community management and making sure that we could interface directly with the users of our platform. But Santi, Dom, Jose, Arthur, all of these guys from our community side have really been integral to ensuring that we have good, consistent communication and dialogue with the community itself. Something I pride myself on is that I'm in our Discord every single day, also talking to people from our community. I think that's very important. For us, one of the things that led to success was a certain degree of serendipity, to be honest. I think we timed the market exceptionally well. We picked Solana for a number of reasons, but one of them was the momentum that we saw Solana picking up and growth in that layer one blockchain. And we were able to secure support early on from the Solana co-founding team as well, because we had this very big, ambitious vision that we wanted to build on Solana. But ultimately, we didn't have a product in 2021. We had an idea, we had a vision of what was possible of being built, and we were able to captivate and capture the hearts and minds of hundreds of thousands of people because of that vision and because of how we communicated it. So that was kind of the initial growth mechanism, was just simply being able to articulate what we wanted to create. However, there's obviously been a lot of ups and downs, and there were a couple of years of downtimes. And the one thing that I will say is critical for founders is and it's something you don't see a lot in this space, so it's a major advantage if you have it, is just authenticity, being genuine, right? And being open. We talk a lot about transparency in the blockchain space, but realistically, there's a lot of scams, a lot of frauds, a lot of misdirections in what people want to do. And yes, you have some transparency because of the tech on the ledger itself, but that doesn't imply in any way that the founder is ethical or scrupulous in what they want to do, right? So doing things for the right reason and communicating openly with people is going to go so far in your credibility and trustworthiness with that community as you form it.
Interesting. And so, Solana has a lot of NFTs, and I was one of the OG buyers for the ships when you guys got them out. What role do you see NFTs playing within the community building realm, and how have you guys leveraged that?
Well, for us, I think that, so NFTs and Star Atlas are certainly different from other forms of NFTs, like PFPs, for example. Maybe just starting with the concept of PFPs, though, because I think it's a valid use case for blockchain technology as well. the big difference is that it's either a form of a collectible. So you're kind of interested in the art, and you can associate yourself with that art, and it's how you want to represent yourself publicly. And so, that's why you apply it as your PFP, and you can say, I'm one of these guys, and this is, my particular unique asset. The other component of that, though, is that you're now part of a club. I mean, literally, the Bored Ape Yacht Club was, that one of the most popular NFTs of all time. And having a membership to something that's bigger than yourself is something that really draws people in. Now, in our case, we've always thought about utility-driven NFTs. And utility in the form of you can leverage it as a gaming experience within the game. So, you could buy any variety of ships in the game from very, very small to very, very large. And your gameplay experience will differ depending on which one of those assets that you hold, because the features that are accessible to you in a way are unlocked based on that asset holding that you possess. But virtually everything, so components, crew members, land, claim stakes, buildings, HABs, what I envision for the future of commercial infrastructure on central space stations, all of these are assets that the players hold, and they're not only does it have some intrinsic utility in how you use it in the game, it has some retentive value in being able to resell it later, but it's also an income generating asset. So for us, it's less about being in a membership. It's about kind of being an entrepreneur in Star Atlas. And you can decide your own strategy on how you want to play. And by the way, it's also viable that you own essentially none of those assets, that you just live your entire existence on the Central Space Station, and you never fly out into deep space, and you never go on a mission to capture some zone or territorial conquest or anything like that. And you can still have a place in Star Atlas. You can still be an entrepreneur. You could focus on buying resources from the market and crafting that into your own skin that you turn around and mint and sell to other players. And I think that's what's really powerful about Star Atlas, is it doesn't have to be about being in the club. It's that you can be innovative and find a niche for yourself and still succeed in our universe.
Yeah, I'm very bullish about that. So, because you guys are about to take it like a AAA game, and there is no prior experience in building AAA games. So how did you guys approach building the team from scratch and managing them for 4+ years? So it's incredible. So any insights around that?
Yeah, well, that might be a little bit of a misconception. So we as a studio have never built a AAA or any game prior to us co-founding it, but this is where I'm saying we have expertise across the co-founding team. And so Danny, Floyd in particular, had 20 years of experience developing out AAA games prior to this for other studios. He worked for Westwood Studios, for EA, 1047 Games, Splitgate was his latest. And so he brings all of the expertise in that particular channel. He is the game director. He is the primary art director over a number of other sub-discipline art directors. So things like character AD or environment AD or vehicle AD. We have specialists in all of those areas. So he understood what was necessary. And in fact, one of the things that I kind of knew early on was going to help us be a hit was I was the one that kind of came to those guys because there was a point in time in 2020 where TOKES was kind of winding down. The market was not in a great place, and the pandemic had just hit. And one of the big opportunities that we had at that company, working directly with the state, was essentially put on pause, and we were running out of money. And so I came to Jacob and Danny, who were still on the only two people left on the TOKES team with me. And I said, we should build a game, and kind of like gave them a very rough framework of what I thought we should do. And within a week, Danny had a 30-page game design document over to me, and he was like, this is how we do it all, right?
I see.
And so he understood the framework, but also understood how to execute on it. He knew what type of talent to look for. He was responsible for all of the human talent acquisition in the game development vertical of our business. So yes, we didn't have expertise as a studio at building a game, but he had that expertise.
I see. So you were on the crypto side, he was on the gaming side, and both heads came together to create Star Atlas.
Well, and Jacob was the third piece of that puzzle. And Jacob, and in fact, Jacob and Danny had built a number of mobile games over a decade as well that were top of the charts on the app stores. And but Jacob's also been building crypto applications for 10 years. So we also knew that a big part of our vision was full on chain gaming logic and composability as a result of that. So he needs to understand the full traditional tech stack of how you build out both web applications as well as gaming applications. But the crypto component of that was one of the most critical pieces. So
Hands down.
this is why I'm saying, I mean, there's such a nice synergy between the co-founders, and it's, yes, I always tell people I'm not the guy that's like telling the team how to build the game, because I have a great partner who does that.
Yep. Yeah. So another question, and this is usually a lot of early stage founders struggle with, is funding. And funding for a AAA game is, imagine, quite massive. So how did you guys approach this in the early days, and how have you guys sustained the team throughout this period of time?
Yeah, one of the things that I'm extremely proud of is that we've never taken outside venture capital in an equity position in our company. So our studio is called Automata. Nobody owns equity in that company except for the founders and the team, so our employees. We effectively bootstrapped the entire funding of the game, and that started with token sales. So there was a private sale component, the public sale, but that consisted of about $12 million in total. In mid 2021, you probably remember the Rebirth campaign.
Yep.
So this was a digital art collectible and poster campaign that had a series of benefits in terms of asset drops that you would get later. That was a phenomenal success, way better than we ever thought. It was $6.5 million over 12 weeks, and so we started scaling up the team around that. And I would note, we started with just the co-founders, and we got to a point of having 235 people in the team in total. We've since scaled back because markets were down, and that was a necessity. But from there, it was really just being able to release new asset classes that started with ships, and then land asset classes, and then mining claim stakes. And then most recently, we just released our crew. And the grand total of revenue off of all of that to date is about $250 million, which is pretty incredible. I don't know that it's ever really been done before. From a startup perspective, to produce that kind of revenue over a 3 or 4 year period. Now, I would put some footnotes on that. A big portion of that revenue came in Atlas, our own game currency. That means we're exposed to volatility risk. We have to liquidate that token over time to convert into USD so that we can pay our team and pay our employees. But nevertheless, the headline figure is extremely good, and probably more importantly, in spite of everything we went through in 2022 and 23, we've been net cash flow and net revenue positive since September of last year. So actually, since breakpoint of last year, we're actually adding money to our treasury every single month and building up that war chest so that we can endure any future down markets or bad
That
markets.
is actually incredible, because you're doing that in Web3, but even games struggle achieving this in Web2.
Yeah.
So that's actually phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, the closest example is, and people compare us to them anyway because we're both space themed. But yes, Star Citizen had a very similar approach to crowdfunding. Obviously, they don't have any assets that produce revenue, nor do they have NFTs. The players aren't able to trade or transact with those assets in the future, which I think is a major benefit for us and for our users. But the headline figure for Star Citizen is that they've generated $750 million in funding, but that's been over 14 years. So we've done a third of that in a little less than a third of the time, which is pretty powerful. Now, all of that said, we do have probably a $350 million budget to build Star Atlas. Those are our projections anyway. And if you think about that, that's also pretty absurd. We could make 3 Hollywood blockbuster movies for that price. So we still have a long way to go, and we still need to generate a lot more revenue, but it's been a great start, and things are looking great now, and I'm extremely confident about our future.
This is incredible. Hearing. So moving forward, so I'm defining it as a game, but it's much more than a game now, because you have, I hear you have moved to you have other plans of expanding to mini apps and such. Can you share more about the future plans Star Atlas is aiming towards?
Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily describe what we're building as really mini apps now, or mini games even. The reality is that in any MMO, there are a number of different underlying game systems that people engage in. Now, because we are a crowd-funded project that builds and releases iteratively, which is necessary because we can't just take money in and say, trust us, we're going to build something great and we'll deliver it to you in 10 years. That's the traditional publisher and studio model where funding comes in advance, and then those teams have a roadmap. And when they have a final product, they release that, which, by the way, I think is exceptionally risky in this day and age. And in fact, we've just seen some major failures of games where $200 million was invested and it was a total flop. Nobody wanted to play it. And now they have to figure out, can they salvage it? In our case, we're constantly under scrutiny. Our community is as passionate and supportive as they are. If they don't like what we're doing, they will tell us immediately and aggressively that they don't like it, right? So we are constantly under scrutiny, and we're constantly under pressure to put a product in their hands that they can engage in and enjoy. Now, part of that process is we take those subsystems from the open world MMO, and as we're building out the core mechanics, we package that into kind of a small mini game. So I would say in the near term, that's fair to say. For example, we're taking our third-person shooter mechanics and we've turned those into arena shooter gameplay modes through Surge, which is 4v4v4 team-based extraction shooter, adding things like team deathmatch or capture the flag or VIP. All of these are different modes that we can use, but ultimately they're just pulling from all of the same shooter mechanics, right? And likewise with racing, we have to define ship physics and movement and VFX and design on every single one of our ships anyway, and how they operate across the universe. But we take all of that work and we put that into a racing gameplay mode so people can engage in that. And same thing with Sage, which is really the on-chain game logic and the on-chain economy. It's mining, crafting, logistics. That's the core loop there with the earnings potential. And that will be the core loop of those same mechanics in the MMO, but we turned that into a browser-based application so we could roll it out quickly and activate play-to-earn and get people, involved in those mechanics. And so the list goes on and on. Essentially, anytime there's a fundamental mechanic that is necessary to be built for the future of the MMO, all of the work that we do, we turn that into a smaller product so we can release that and get people engaged in it. But in the long term, all of this converges into a single unified product.
Interesting. So before we close out the interview, because we're again short of time, are there any lessons in your building journey that you would like to communicate to the next generation of founders?
Well, there was a really tough lesson in there with respect to FTX, and despite the fact that I've been around in crypto for so long, and I can't tell you how many times I heard "not your keys, not your crypto" after that happened. And obviously, this is we deeply believe in the philosophy of crypto and decentralization and self-sovereignty and permissionless systems. All of this is very critical to our ethos as a company. It was a series of bad timings, but protect your treasury, number one, I guess, is how I'm going to define it. I'll take a little bit of an aside here, and I still think we did the right thing, but part of our revenue, as I said, was in Atlas. And I took a very strong position as the CEO that we're not going to go sell the Atlas that we were receiving as income until we get a game product in a material state delivered to the community. You can imagine the accusations if we were taking Atlas in as a token sink and then immediately selling it on the market, people would think we were rugging, right? And so I was very concerned about the perception risk of that and the impact to the community, and also felt that we were collecting enough USDC revenue as well to continue building. But our balance sheet went from $115 million to $15 million over the course of about 2 or 3 months, right? So
that's a shock.
It was a huge disruption to the business and to our budgeting and to our planning. So again, all of that comes back to protect the balance sheet and make sure that you have the runway, because things will change. In any business, things will change rapidly on you, but in particular, given the volatility of crypto and Web3, you have to be extremely defensive. Because on top of all of the other business risk, now you have market risk that isn't typically present. So that's that's number one. But number two, which is really just on the kind of the tail end of that, is, if you're getting into starting a business, you want to be an entrepreneur, you really need to have diehard conviction and perseverance in what it is that you're building. One, you have to love it because you're going to be spending 16 hours a day working on it. And two, you have to be able to weather the storm when bad things happen. And I think that's another thing that we've done quite well. We've come through the absolute worst that we could possibly come through. We're still here and we're stronger than ever. And it's because everybody on our team that we retained on the team, as well as all of the co-founders, we believe in this vision more than anything else. And this is what we want to dedicate our lives to, and this is what we want to build. And I think that's the reason we're still around today.
That's all bullish for Star Atlas. Anyways, I think that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you, Michael, for coming on the show, and we'll catch you in the next one.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.